It's a Nintendo heavy news week, and Xbox announces a direct. Let's talk about that and get right to the game news. Welcome in. I hope you've had a fantastic week. The last 7 days of gaming news have been interesting, but the biggest are the last couple of hours for me, honestly. So let's get right to it. We're doing this live on Twitch. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks for being here after the fact. But let's get to it. All right. So I thought this was cool. Let's start off with some wholesome news. Pokemon Company donates 50 million yen to aid Japan's earthquake victims. If you aren't aware, New Year's Day in Japan, there was a massive earthquake, 7.6 magnitude earthquake, struck the country's Noto Peninsula. That was a New Year's Day event, but they have pledged $50 million, well, 50 million yen, to the Japanese Red Cross Society, and they're also working through their Pokemon with You Foundation to have activities to help children affected by the disaster, which is fantastic. Wholesome, wholesome, wholesome. Love to see it. Pokemon Company does donate a lot of money to children's causes, and that's very commendable. And it's appreciated, It's just nice that they do those things. All right, let's move on. Thank you, Pokemon Company, for kicking us off with some wholesome news. All right, next up, courtesy of Polygon, we've got Jack Black becoming too powerful will star as Steve in Minecraft movie. I thought this was like a prank. I thought this was a joke, but this is now legit, as far as I can tell. Jack Black continues to be Hollywood's go-to guy for video game roles. He'll play Steve, literally Steve, in the upcoming Minecraft movie, according to reports from Deadline and Variety. I don't know a whole lot about yes, Steve. I don't know a lot about the Minecraft movie, so reading this kind of brought me up to speed. Jason Momoa is supposed to be in it. Wild, right? Daniel Brooks, Emma Myers, and it's gonna be a live action adaptation. I thought it was gonna be like a CG Mario movie situation, but who knows what this is going to be, honestly. The movie has been in the works, according to this article, nearly a decade. I remember there have been talks about a Minecraft movie, as long as there were talks about a Halo movie and then a TV series. And so hopefully the studio does the series proper, because we all know how we all felt about the Halo series when it appeared, right? It was a bit much. But anyway, this is interesting. I mean, Jack Black has been in a bunch of video game stuff. I thought he was good as Bowser. Peach is a little overrated. That's my hot take. But, it is what it is. Exciting news, though. All right, let's move on to the next thing. Xbox has announced a developer direct for January 18th, 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern, which means we'll be doing that day. That's a Thursday, January 18th, Thursday. They'll be covering Indiana Jones, Hellblade 2, Aura, History Untold, and Avowed, and I think that's like pretty much it. There might be some surprises. I don't know. They're usually pretty like, hey, this is what we're doing. Don't expect anything else, and pretty clear on what all of that amounts to. So, hey, that's cool. I'm looking forward to it. More games to cover, more news to talk about, and I like doing reaction streams. So we'll be watching this live when it happens on January 18th. So be here to watch it. It'll be fun. All right, next up, Princess Peach Showtime has been rated for Nintendo Switch. We know the game was coming out in March of this year, 2024. And now it's been rated E10. It doesn't really mean a whole lot. I mean, we knew it was going to be at least E. E10 makes sense. I think the biggest takeaway from this is, hey, this game is coming out in a couple of months, and it's going to be good. I'm excited to play it. I'm sure my daughter's going to love it. I think it's just going to be fun. I don't know what to expect. I'm trying to really not go deep into what's being shown other than what Nintendo officially shows. But as we get closer to launch, Nintendo really likes to go into showing a lot of details that kind of spoils stuff here and there. And so I'm excited for the game, and I'm trying to just leave it at that. So we'll move on. But yeah, it's cool. It got a rating. I mean, ratings are just reminders that the game's closer. It's probably, pretty much done in development. They're refining things, bug fixing at this point. But it's coming soon. So that's really awesome. All right, next story. This was weird, but this courtesy, I saw this kind of blowing up right as gathering stuff for tonight's show. This is on Resetera. There's three of them, games that are delisted out of print from Nintendo. Like, stores are stopping selling these. They won't have them physical. So we got Paper Mario, Origami King, Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze, the Link's Awakening remake, Pikmin 3 Deluxe, Metroid Dread, Kirby Star Allies, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Fire Emblem 3 Houses, and Engage, Yoshi's Crafted World, WarioWare Get It Together, Nintendo Switch Sports, Super Mario Odyssey, Splatoon 2, Mario Maker 2, and Mario Strikers Battle League. And a lot of people have suddenly thought that maybe they're going to re-release these as a Nintendo Selects, which usually means the price is a little cheaper, which we know with Nintendo first-party games, they never go down in price unless Nintendo says they go down in price. So if that's true, awesome. But that leads us into some of our other stories tonight, but we'll get there. This kind of is like, hey, when Nintendo starts doing like Player's Choice titles, now it's Nintendo Selects, ever since the Wii, where it's a cheaper cost, same game. It's just a little cheaper, save you some money. It's older, it's usually the older titles. They all make sense, right? This list makes sense to do Nintendo Selects with. But what this means is Switch is nearing like end of life cycle, and we've all kind of felt that way, right? Switch has gone on a lot longer than we expected it to, just given how long the Wii U lasted. And then the success of the Switch really carried it an extra, like, I'd say 3 years, 4 years, maybe 3 years. But it's doing really well. It's still doing really well. And so this is going to push people, to just buying some games that maybe they don't have, save you some money if you haven't picked them up. I mean, of this list, I would probably right now pick up, Yoshi's Crafted World. I didn't pick it up at launch. I played the demo, thought it was awesome, and then moved on. Paper Mario might be fun. I heard it was pretty decent. So, like there's some stuff there to check out. But I think this is a good sign that the Switch 1 is winding down and we're getting ready for Switch 2 stuff, which brings us to our next story. And I don't know if we covered this last week, but it's pertinent here. Switch 2 likely to be iteration rather than revolution, predicts an analyst. This is courtesy of Video Game Chronicle. This was January 3rd, which was, let's look at our dates here. That was Wednesday. That was the day the game news came out last week. So no, we did not cover this, just to be sure. So what does this mean? Likely to be iteration rather than revolution. Well, I mean, if you think about it, Nintendo has a large install base of Switch users, and the form factor, the physical attachment, the Joy-Cons, the way the system works between being handheld and TV docked, that's trendy. Tons of handheld PCs have come out just in the last year that all have some kind of dock, that have some kind of, they're portable first, connect to a TV. Like, Nintendo doesn't want to lose that. So what's the best thing to do? Well, just make a better Switch. And so we'll likely see better hardware and other things coming with that. Likely this year, as everybody's been talking about. Like, I'm not saying anything that no better YouTuber has already discussed, but I wanted to throw in some thoughts here. Because in here he says, the time is here finally for a Switch successor, even though I can say a Pro model actually did exist and certain developers were already working with the dev kit. I believe the next hardware will drop in 2024 for $400. There's a high chance the games will cost more, $70 too. So if the Switch 2 is $400, there's a lot of expectations with that, because you can get a Series S for, $300, $350, and then the Series X is $500. So it, $400 is a decent price point as long as we can expect, next gen features out of it. But that's what an iteration is. When a new graphics card comes out on a PC, it's not necessarily a mind-blowing jump. It's, hey, all of your existing stuff will work better, which leads me to my point of bringing this article up. The iteration leads me to believe more towards the backwards compatibility, which a lot of people were kind of like up in the air about, like, oh, Nintendo didn't actually say it, but you can't expect it either. Here's the point. This leads more to backwards compatibility being important because now all of those old games can still sell. Nintendo will still sell Mario Kart 8 Deluxe forever. People will still buy it. Mario Kart 9 can come out. People will still go to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe because I'm sure Mario Kart 9 won't feature the depth of things that 8 has. I mean, that just, it makes sense. Just think about it for a minute. But anyway, yeah, and then, just making those older games, let's say Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Pokemon, they can all run a little better on the new hardware. And so people will still buy those games and just get a better performant version of it. And so yeah, I think that's just likely. Anyway, thought it was interesting that people are kind of seeing the writing on the wall, which leads me to the next story here. Oh wait, I got him out of order. Let me fix it. All right, here we go. This post on X, Twitter, Twix, rumored Nintendo Switch 2 specs according to the Taiwanese Economic Forum. 8 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of storage, 120 hertz screen, and greatly improved battery life. Now, these specs have been flying all over the place this week. This came out January 9th, 2024, which was today. So that's when this was posted a few hours ago at the time of this filming. But what does that, does that scream next gen to you? Well, it's just some specs on paper. I mean, I'm kind of concerned about the 64 gigs of storage, if I'm being completely honest. It needs to at least be like 256, 512, but they're going to keep costs as low as possible. And so there you go. 8 gigs of RAM, though. I would say you need a little more, but 8 gigs can do plenty that Nintendo is accustomed to doing with hardware. I think they can make it work, especially with the processor and graphics card in it, the NVIDIA chipset being very heavily rumored to contain DLSS, which is their upscaling functionality that can make a lower resolution image look really clean without spending more GPU power. So, all that said, specs kind of make sense. The backwards compatibility kind of makes sense. The iteration over the revolution. So, what does Intel use? They use ticks and talks. So, this is more of a tick than a great talk. Anyway, I don't want to get too much into that, but it makes sense. And like you look at it and you're like, that seems kind of low, but if that's true, I mean, Nintendo's going to make it work. And the Nvidia side of it, they're good at making hardware. Yes, their newer graphics cards are very overpriced, but they have a lot in the, system on a chip sector that we don't even see from day to day, like servers and stuff that have to be super optimized. So I think this will be fine. Your current Switch plays games just fine. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a current Switch that you enjoy games on. Just keep that in mind. I think Nintendo can make it work. They've already committed to this. If this is true and the Switch 2 is launching this year, then we can bet that the production has been going for a few months now, probably. As a Will says, oh yay, the most anticipated game of 2024, discerning Switch 2 rumors. Yeah, but it's going to be a good time. All right, well, let's move to our next story, which involves the Xbox again, but not in the way you think. It already popped up. A lot of people talking about Hi-Fi Rush being heavily rumored to come to the Switch because, courtesy of YouTuber gamer Nate the Hate, talking about a big first-party title coming to Switch later this year. And a lot of people think it's Hi-Fi Rush. I think it would fit on the Switch. I don't think that hurts anything. I think it's more games for everybody to enjoy. So there we go. That's awesome. I think more people playing that game and make, the developers making money on it is a good thing. People want to argue about exclusives online and just that's the nature of the internet. Ignore those people. They're crazy. But anyway, all right, so let's go to our last story, which leads back to Nintendo getting ready for the Switch 2 probably this year. It's courtesy of Insider Gaming. I don't know how credible they are, but the website's really well designed. Nintendo could license out its brands to other developers for games, even though they left off the S. Anyway, This article states Nintendo could start letting more developers create games based on popular Nintendo characters and brands. According to Game Industry Biz, Nintendo is deep in conversation with at least 3 studios about making new games based on Nintendo IP. I also know that Nintendo is actively meeting with independent developers to find new partners, the article reads. Some of that is around publishing indie games, which Nintendo does from time to time, but it's also seeking studios that could work on some of its IP. All right. I got kind of excited with this because there's a lot of let me get into this. All right, there's a lot that we want to happen, and there's a lot that could happen. Will's got it on the head in chat. Stuff like Cadence of Hyrule. I think handing off Nintendo IP to indie devs to make new games that don't exist, not like extensions or entries in the main lines, but like spin-offs and fun titles like Cadence of Hyrule make a ton of sense. That game was brilliant. So let's go down this rabbit hole then. Could we get somebody working on a new F-Zero? Maybe. That would be fun, right? But then there's like, a lot of Nintendo IP that just spin-off titles make sense on. And there's a lot of Nintendo IP that we want more games out of, but I just don't think Nintendo sees a point in putting their main studios, their main dev teams on these projects, because they're already working on the things that they know are going to make them money. You've got teams always making a Mario game, a 2D and 3D. You've got teams working on stuff with Kirby. You've got teams working on stuff with Yoshi. You've got all of these and let's not even forget Zelda, because that is huge in and of itself. Then there's like all the little projects associated with those bigger IPs. Now you've got Metroid being ramped up again, thanks to Metroid Prime Remaster did really well in sales, as far as I can tell. People were really hyped about that. It was a great remaster. So I think it makes sense. And then you look at what like Ubisoft has done with, what was the game that I can't even remember, but it had Star Fox in it, and you had like the toys. I bought it when it was like super cheap at GameStop, but that was a cool project. You got Mario and Rabbids, that even if you don't like the Rabbids side of it, it was a fun game. I'm terrible at tactics games, but it was good. So I put the question out there to anyone watching, listening, whatever. What games and what developers do you want to see work on stuff? Personally, I'd like to see the team at EA that made the newest Rogue Squadron game. It wasn't Rogue Squadron, but it was the the TIE Fighter game. I'd like to see them come out with a Star Fox game. I think it would be really fun. And then they need to hand F-Zero back to Sega, because F-Zero GX was the pinnacle of F-Zero. I will defend that. So just let Sega do that. They already did it. Just let them do it again. Still holding out for that port of F-Zero GX on the Switch. But anyway, all right. Well, that does it for the game news this week. Thank you all for watching. It's a bit all over the place. It was a longer episode, I feel. But we did good. There's a lot of Nintendo stuff coming, and there's going to be a lot more rumors. There's going to be a lot more announcements. I would say none of the rumors take seriously, unless you just want to be disappointed later, until Nintendo says something official. Because once those official specs and stats come out, then we can get properly hyped. But I like looking at this stuff when it's kind of in the general consciousness of the gaming space and go, hey, like, is this reasonable? Well, if you look at all the little loose threads, kind of put them next to each other, you kind of see like, hey, Nintendo is definitely preparing for something this year, and we've known that for a while. But I'm excited. I'm excited for new hardware. I'm always excited for new games. The next Nintendo Direct, when is that? It's usually in February, right? We had the Switch 1 announced in a January-February timeframe. So let's get hyped. Let's get excited. But let's be reasonable about it. Don't be Jenkins. No, I'm going to take those rumors and run with them. Just like when someone tells me a maybe. Maybe, I had to explain this to my daughter. Maybe is not yes, and it's not no, but just treat it like a no. Anyway, thanks for watching the game news. If you're watching on YouTube, Let me know what you think about any of these stories down in the comments below. Leave a like on the video and don't forget to subscribe for more game news. Next time, we'll see you next week.